Yo, what's going on, guys? We've got a new patch in Helldivers today addressing the fire damage over time for players who are off host, some crashes, and more. And we've also got an Eruptor change, which I've already played with the Eruptor today, so I'll talk about that after we go over the patch notes real quick. So first things first, they have made some changes regarding some weapons, enemy balance, crash fixes, social menu issues, the DoT fix, misaligned scopes fix, and some general fixes and improvement. So first things first, they changed the Eruptor. The shrapnel was bugging out and randomly one-shotting yourself or teammates. So they've removed this shrapnel and they've increased the explosion damage by 40, basically making it so this gun feels more like an autocannon rather than a shrapnel gun. Now, like I said, I already played this gun, so let's go over the rest of the patch notes and I'll tell you guys my thoughts on it. Then with some enemies, they've increased Shrieker's sight and hearing range slightly, and they've increased the gunship hearing range slightly. As for the fixes, they've fixed the issue with the way damage over time effects were being applied. This should fix issues where only the network session host could apply them, and other cases where they would be applied inconsistently. Now, obviously, hopefully this is fixed, and fire damage stonks are about to go way through the roof because off-host players can now light things on fire, and this should also address gas, so the orbital gas strike should be really good now, hopefully. Next, they fixed firing a Punisher plasma while wearing a shield backpack no longer damages the Helldiver. Then they fixed some weapon scopes not being aligned in first-person view. Shout out to the AMR, but there were a lot of other guns doing this. Next, they say the sound when stimming no longer plays while being interrupted, and this was a major pain point for me sometimes, but yeah, they said they fixed it. Next, we've got major orders with the kill task, now tracking the score correctly. Previously, it counted the entire squad's kills once for each player, meaning it would multiply the score by the number of people on the mission. This is now amended. Then we've got Helldivers can no longer land on tall rocks in Horde defend missions, and they can't land on top of bug pillars in deactivate terminated control system missions. And then they have a fix for the reinforced stratagem not being present if a Helldiver leaves the session before readying up and then not joining the active session. Then we've got a large list of crashes, which I'm just going to throw up on the screen. I am not going to read all of these out. And then we've got some social menu fixes, and we're just going to throw up the rest of these social menu fixes. It just seems like a bunch of random changes to help out the social menu. All right, and that's it for the patch notes. Now, I've played with the Eruptor and I'd like to give you guys my thoughts on this. Now, first up, they removed the shrapnel to fix that bug, but I would like to point out that this bug didn't really appear until the last big patch, where they added a change where shots that ricochet from heavy armored enemies will now properly hit the Helldiver who fired them, saying that trigger discipline is highly recommended. Now, this change to me is really weird because they always talk about gun realism in this game, and I don't think it's really that realistic that if you shoot heavy armor that shots will ricochet directly back at you, because let's be real, a ricochet just kind of randomly goes anywhere. There is that chance for it to come directly back at you, but saying it will now properly hit the Helldiver who fired them is a really weird change to me. And I have noticed some weird ricochet things, like I even had a plasma Punisher shot ricochet off the floor once. But anyways, I didn't really notice the bug with the Eruptor until we got this change. And my main issue with this is that the Eruptor's shrapnel was kind of the identity of the weapon. I know a lot of you don't really care about that, but if you look at the Eruptor's description, it literally says it's a shrapnel gun, and it even mentions be careful when firing it because it may kill you. Now, of course, it shouldn't randomly kill you, especially if that's due to a bug. You know, team kills should either be on purpose or on accident. You shouldn't just randomly have a chance to die. But at the same time, this is really weird to me because I do like the idea of shrapnel weapons. It kind of reminds me of Jacob's guns from Borderlands 3, and I feel like it's a really cool identity to add to specific weapons. It adds a whole different weapon type. And I don't particularly care if the Eruptor specifically is buffed or nerfed, but I do feel like it's in a weird spot where what happens when they add shrapnel guns in the future? Is this bug going to be applied to all shrapnel weapons? So are we just not going to be allowed to have shrapnel guns now? I would rather see them remove this weird change where they have shots ricocheting from heavy armored enemies, and I would rather just get shrapnel back because let's be real, the shrapnel was a giant part of of the damage with the Eruptor. And from my playtime with the Eruptor, it really feels a lot weaker. Now, one thing I will say is that it does have a consistent AoE now, where last patch when they nerfed the shrapnel on it, it did seem like it wasn't killing enemies right next to it. Now it does seem to be consistently killing enemies as long as they're within that AoE, and the AoE seems pretty generous, maybe anywhere from 5 to 8 meters. However, that shrapnel really was a big part of its damage, because I have noticed that the Eruptor cannot one-shot the factory strider turrets anymore, and also the Eruptor is not really doing a good job against Devastators in my opinion anymore. I was randomly one-tapping Scout Striders, but it wasn't consistent enough that I could find the spot on them to one-shot them. Most of the time it takes 2 shots to Scout Striders. And I didn't try this weapon against bugs yet, but I had some people in my Discord playing with it already against bugs, and they said that they weren't able to one-shot Hive Guards anymore. It took about 2 shots to kill those. So in my opinion, I think that this nerfed the weapon. I would really love for them to remove that weird shrapnel change and restore the shrapnel to this gun, as well as add some other shrapnel weapons, because it's a really cool type of weapon to have in the game. Instead of having guns with splash damage, they have shrapnel that randomly shoots around them. Now, another fix they could possibly do is make it so the shrapnel only goes 10 meters away, similar to impact grenades, which have about a 9-meter radius. That way, if you shoot this gun across the map, the shrapnel won't come all the way back at you. It would just go within a 10-meter radius, or even up to a 20-meter radius, something like that. Whereas now this gun just feels like a primary autocannon, which obviously it's usually going to be worse than the autocannon considering the slow fire rate and stuff like that. It doesn't need to be as strong as the autocannon, obviously, because that's a support weapon, but that is the gun that the Eruptor now feels most comparable to, and it's just another AoE weapon in the game. It kind of lost that identity of having shrapnel. Now, luckily, it does still close fabricators. I did shoot it against multiple fabricators. You probably saw that in this video, and I think that was the primary utility that a lot of people really cared about. And like I said, I don't particularly mind if a certain gun gets buffed or nerfed. I just like cool mechanics in video games, and I like different stuff that I can test out and go see what kind of stuff I can do with it. So that's my thoughts on the Eruptor. Those are all the patch notes. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out.